The Galactic Empire was vast. Its fleets covered hundreds of star systems. Its leaders believed there was no force in the galaxy strong enough to challenge them. Whenever a new world was discovered, it was quickly brought under the Empire's rule. Resistance was crushed in days. For centuries, this had been the way of things. Then, a strange signal appeared across the Empire's communication network. At first, it was faint, like a whisper among the stars. The Imperial communication. Officers tried to trace it, but the source was hidden. When they finally managed to capture the full transmission, they expected to hear the usual desperate plea from another weak species begging for mercy. Instead, they heard something else entirely. A human voice spoke, calm, steady, without fear. This is the final warning. Leave our space, or face destruction beyond your imagining. There was no trembling in the voice, no hint of panic. The words were clear, as if the speaker was standing right in the same room with them, across the command decks of Imperial ships. Officers exchanged puzzled looks. Some laughed quietly, others frowned. The Empire had heard many threats before, but none had ever sounded quite like this. The transmission identified the speaker. His name was Commander Hale of the United Human Defense Fleet. There was no further explanation, no long message, no list of demands, only those few words. Then silence in the Imperial capital. The Emperor's advisors gathered in the Grand Council chamber. The room was a circle of dark metal, lit by a glowing sphere in the center that displayed a map of the galaxy. The human territories were a tiny section on one side, no more than a cluster of distant stars. The advisors spoke in low voices. They dared to threaten the Empire. One said with disbelief, "They are barely known beyond their own borders." Another replied, "Their fleets are small. Their colonies are few. This is a joke." A tall, sharp-eyed commander named Varen spoke next. "If they truly mean this as a warning, it is the most foolish act I have ever seen. No one warns the Empire. They surrender, or they are destroyed." The Emperor sat silently for a long time. His face was calm, but his eyes narrowed as he studied the map. "Humans," he said finally. "I have heard stories of them. They are said to be clever, unpredictable, but they are small. They will not stand against us." The council agreed. Orders were given to prepare a fleet to enter human space. The commanders did not believe this would be difficult. Most of them thought the humans would flee at the first sight of Imperial ships. Some expected the humans would send another message, begging for mercy. But far from the Imperial capital, on the blue and green world humans called Earth, the situation was very different. In the underground command center of the United Human Defense Fleet, Commander Hale stood before a massive display screen. Around him, officers worked at their stations, monitoring incoming signals and fleet positions. The air was tense but controlled. Everyone knew what was coming. Hale had served in the fleet for most of his life. He had seen what happened to other species who resisted the Empire. They were given no second chances. Their fleets were destroyed, their worlds taken, their cultures erased. He knew the same fate would come to humanity unless they acted first. Some had argued for quiet diplomacy. Others believed the humans should stay hidden, keep their technology secret, and hope the Empire ignored them. Hale disagreed. The Empire was not the kind of enemy that ignored anything. They would come sooner or later. It was better to face them now. So the broadcast was sent, a final warning, with no hint of fear. At that moment, deep in space, Imperial scout ships moved closer to human borders. They scanned for military activity, but saw nothing unusual. There were no large fleets waiting at the border, no obvious defensive lines. The scouts reported back that human space seemed lightly guarded. Imperial commanders took this as a sign of weakness. In truth, the humans had hidden their preparations well. In asteroid belts close to their borders, massive weapons were buried inside hollowed-out rocks. Defense satellites floated silently in the darkness, their weapons cold but ready. Entire squadrons of stealth ships drifted among the stars, invisible to Imperial sensors. On every major human world, defense shields stood ready to rise at a moment's notice. Hale knew the Empire would underestimate them. That was part of the plan. In the days that followed the broadcast, messages poured in from across the human colonies. Many were frightened, some were angry. But Hale's message was simple to all of them. We will stand. We will fight only if they cross the line, and if they do, we will not hold back. In the Imperial fleets, the reaction was very different. Many officers found the human message amusing. Others thought it was a sign of arrogance. But one or two veterans of old wars shook their heads. They had seen this kind of quiet confidence before, and it had rarely ended well for those who ignored it. Still, the decision had been made. The Empire would not retreat. They would not listen to the warning. Preparations for invasion moved forward. Far above Earth, in the black void, Hale stood on the command bridge of the flagship Resolute. Through the wide viewing windows, he could see the curve of his homeworld below. His officers waited for his next command. They will come, Hale said quietly, and when they do, they will see why they should have listened. The officers nodded. No one needed further orders. Every system was ready. Every weapon was armed. Every crew member understood what was at stake. This was not just about survival. It was about making the galaxy understand that humanity would never kneel. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, Imperial ships moved closer. The final warning had been sent. The choice now belonged to the Empire, and humanity was ready for their answer. Long before the Galactic Empire learned of humanity, humans had already fought the hardest battles any species could face. They had no great empire of their own, no control over dozens of star systems. But they had something far more valuable. They had experience. For thousands of years, humans had struggled to survive on their own homeworld. They faced harsh climates, natural disasters, and wars between their own nations. They built weapons to defend themselves. They learned how to recover from destruction. They rebuilt again and again. Every time they fell, they rose stronger than before. It was this history that shaped them into what they were when the Empire finally came. But the Empire knew nothing of this. The Empire's leaders believed strength came from numbers and from ruling many worlds. They saw history as a record of victories and conquests. Humanity's history, however, was one of survival against impossible odds. To the humans, victory did not always mean defeating an enemy. Sometimes it meant enduring until the enemy gave up or collapsed on its own. When the first human scientists discovered faster than light travel, the galaxy was already crowded with other civilizations. Many humans wanted to explore peacefully, to trade and share knowledge. They sent out expeditions to nearby star systems. Some of these expeditions met friendly species. Others met only empty, silent worlds. Then came the first contact with the Galactic Empire. It happened quietly. Imperial scout ships entered the edge of human space without warning. They studied human colonies from a distance. They listened to human communications. Then they left without speaking. At first, human governments thought nothing of it. They assumed the scouts were curious explorers. But they were wrong. The Empire was not exploring. It was measuring. In secret, human military leaders began preparing. They did not announce these preparations to the public. Most citizens had no idea how serious the situation could become. But in military command rooms deep beneath the surface of Earth, maps were drawn. Defense plans were made, and weapons were built. Commander Hale was one of those who had pushed hardest for these preparations. He had read the records of other civilizations that had faced the Empire. Those civilizations no longer existed as free peoples. Their fleets had been destroyed, their leaders removed, their cultures forced to serve the Empire. Hale refused to let humanity join that list. Even before the broadcast warning was sent, humanity's defenses were taking shape. Every major colony world had a shield network ready to activate. Weapons were hidden in places the Empire would never think to look. Stealth fleets were stationed in deep space, moving silently, waiting for orders. Human engineers developed technology that was not used anywhere else in the galaxy. They built energy weapons that could strike through even the strongest known shields. They created mines that could attach themselves to passing ships without being detected. They even designed weapons powerful enough to disrupt a star's energy output for days at a time. These were not weapons made for conquest. They were made for survival. While the Empire measured strength in the number of ships it could send to a battle, humans measured strength in the damage they could cause if forced to fight, but not all humans believed this was the right path. There were voices within the colonies calling for negotiation. Some leaders feared that preparing for war would only bring the Empire's wrath faster. They urged Hale to try diplomacy before making threats. They reminded him that humanity had never faced a force as large as the Empire. Hale listened to these voices, but did not change his mind. He knew the Empire's nature. It did not respect kindness, it respected strength. And to show strength, humanity had to be ready to stand, not bow. This was why the warning broadcast was short and clear. It was not meant to invite talks. It was meant to show that humanity's decision had already been made. On Earth, life went on as normal for most people. Families worked, children studied, and cities stayed busy. Yet far from the cities, in quiet research stations and hidden shipyards, the real work continued day and night. One such place was the Hollow Forge, an old mining station built inside a large asteroid. Most people believed it had been abandoned years ago. In truth, it had been transformed into a ship construction yard. There, engineers worked on ships unlike anything the Empire had seen. The largest of these was the Night Spear, a vessel with the ability to disappear entirely from sensors, while carrying weapons strong enough to destroy a capital ship in one strike elsewhere. On the frozen moon of Callan, deep bunkers held prototype defense systems that could create short-lived but powerful distortions in space. These distortions could tear apart anything caught inside. These preparations were known to only a small number of people, even among the fleet. Only the highest-ranking officers had the full picture. This secrecy was necessary. If the Empire learned of these weapons too early, they would come in overwhelming force before humanity was ready. And so, the humans waited. When the warning went out across the galaxy, it was not a sudden decision. It was the final step in a plan years in the making. Hale and his fellow commanders knew that the Empire would laugh at the warning. They would take it as a sign of weakness. That was exactly what humanity needed them to think. The Empire had no idea that every approach to human space was lined with traps. They did not know that human fleets could move without being seen. They did not understand that the small, scattered colonies they saw on their maps were connected by secret relay networks, allowing instant communication across vast distances. And, most of all, they did not understand the human will to fight when survival was at stake. For centuries, humanity had been shaped by challenges. They had faced famine, disease, war, and disaster. They had stood on the edge of extinction more than once, and each time they had found a way to endure. This was not something the Empire could measure with numbers on a map. It was something in the human spirit itself. From the Emperor's palace to the smallest imperial outpost, the warning message spread, and with it, questions began to grow. A few imperial officers began to wonder why such a small, unknown people would speak so boldly. Some suspected there was more to humans than appeared on the surface, but most of the Empire dismissed the thought. They saw no need to respect a people who held only a handful of star systems. They believed history would soon forget the name of humanity. They were wrong. The days after the warning broadcast passed quietly, but for Commander Hale and the United Human Defense Fleet, every hour was filled with careful preparation. The Empire's response had not yet arrived, but Hale knew it was coming. The Empire would never back away from what they saw as a challenge across human space. Fleets moved into position. Most of the activity happened in deep space, far from civilian eyes. Civilian ships continued their regular trade and travel, unaware that war might soon reach them. The fleet stayed hidden to avoid drawing the Empire's attention too soon. Hale spent long hours in the command center of the flagship. Resolute, large display screens showed the positions of friendly ships, the known paths of Imperial scouts, and the locations of hidden defenses. We must make them believe the road ahead is open. Hale told his officers during one planning session. The less they suspect, the the deeper they will walk into the trap. The trap Hale spoke of had been years in the making. The first part of it lay in the asteroid belts that marked the outer edges of human space. From a distance, they appeared to be nothing but harmless rocks drifting slowly around their stars. In truth, many of these asteroids had been hollowed out and filled with weapon systems. Inside one such asteroid, the crew of Station Hammer waited in darkness. Their duty was to watch the outer edge of the sector and remain silent unless the order to fire came. Their weapons were massive rail cannons, each capable of sending a projectile through the thickest Imperial armor. The asteroids were shielded from detection by layers of rock and advanced camouflage technology. Even a passing Imperial sensor sweep would find nothing unusual. The second part of the trap involved hidden minefields. Human engineers had placed thousands of small, intelligent mines in certain travel lanes. Each mine was programmed to remain completely still until a target entered range. They could attach themselves to passing ships, then detonate with enough force to tear a vessel apart. These mines were invisible to standard Imperial scanners. The third part of the trap was the stealth fleet, spread out across several systems. These ships had special hull designs that absorbed scanning signals and bent light around them. To the naked eye or a sensor screen, they were simply not there. The stealth fleet was tasked with striking from the shadows once the Empire committed its forces. While the trap took shape, the Empire's scouts kept probing human borders. They sent small groups of ships to test human reactions. Each time, the humans stayed quiet. Hale allowed the scouts to approach, gather their information, and leave unharmed. It was important not to give the Empire any reason to think the humans were ready for them. In the Imperial capital, reports from the scouts continued to suggest weakness. The humans seemed calm, unprepared, almost careless. The border appeared lightly guarded. To the Imperial commanders, this confirmed what they already believed. Humanity's warning had been nothing but a bluff. The decision to invade came quickly. Orders were given for a fleet to assemble. It would be the first wave, strong enough to crush any resistance and force the humans into surrender. On the Resolute, Hale received word from intelligence agents hidden within neutral trading stations. The Empire is moving, the message said. Their fleets are gathering. First contact is expected within 2 weeks. Hale called a meeting of his senior officers. Around the large table, holographic maps floated in the air, showing the likely approach routes of the Imperial fleet. They will not send their entire armada, Hale said. They believe they do not need it. The first wave will be large enough to destroy any ordinary defense force, but not large enough to crush a trap they do not know is there. This is our chance. He assigned each officer to a section of the defense. Admiral Corvin would oversee the asteroid gun stations. Captain Lena would command the stealth fleet's first strike group. Commodore Brand would control the minefields. Remember, Hale told them, we do not fight for pride. We fight to survive. Every move we make is to break their strength and send them running. In the days that followed, the quiet of human space felt heavier. Deep in the asteroid belts, gun crews checked their weapons again and again. Mine layers made final adjustments to their fields. Stealth ships drifted silently into ambush positions. Far from the front lines, engineers worked in hidden bases to keep supply lines ready, special fuel cells, replacement weapon parts, and medical supplies were loaded onto fast transport ships. These transports were designed to slip between battle zones without being detected. Hale knew the fight could be long, and even the best trap would fail if supplies ran out. One night, Hale walked alone on the observation deck of the Resolute through the thick glass. He could see the stars spread out in every direction. Somewhere out there, the Imperial fleet was moving toward him. He thought of the colonies, of the families who had no idea how close war had come. He thought of the long human history of survival. This time, he whispered to himself, we are ready. The final stage of the trap involved misinformation. Human intelligence agents sent carefully chosen data into networks the Empire was known to monitor. These data packets suggested that human fleets were massing in the wrong locations. Some packets hinted at secret negotiations with another alien power. Others showed false records of weakness in key human defenses. The goal was simple: to guide the Imperial fleet exactly where Hale wanted them to go. The plan worked. When Imperial fleet planners reviewed the information, they believed they had found the perfect route into human space. It would bring them directly toward what they thought was the human capital's weakest approach. In truth, it would take them straight into the center of the trap. The Empire launched its first wave on schedule. Massive warships, heavy cruisers, and swarms of attack craft jumped into faster-than-light travel together. They moved like a wall of metal across the stars. To them, this was just another campaign, another small people to bring under control. In the hidden gun stations, crews watched their long-range sensors light up with signals. The enemy was coming. Messages were sent quietly through secure channels. The stealth fleet activated its silent tracking systems. The mines armed themselves and waited. In the command center of the Resolute, Hale stood before the main display. The Imperial fleet's marker was moving steadily toward the border. Every plan, every hidden weapon, every hour of preparation had led to this. They are walking into it, Captain Lena said beside him. They think they are hunting us, Hale replied. But it is they who are the prey. The trap was set. All that remained was for the Empire to take the final step. The silence of space was broken by the sudden flash of light. As the Galactic Empire's first wave entered human territory, hundreds of massive warships moved in perfect formation, their engines glowing bright against the dark stars. Imperial officers stood proudly on their command bridges. They believed victory was certain and swift. Commander Hale watched the approaching fleet from the flagship Resolute. His face was calm, but inside, his mind was sharp and focused. Years of planning had led to this moment. He knew that once the Empire made the first move, there would be no turning back. The Imperial fleet advanced toward the region called the Outer Belt, a dense field of asteroids and small moons near the edge of human space. To the Empire, this was just a natural barrier, nothing more. To Hale and his fleet, it was the first line of defense. From hidden gun stations inside the largest asteroids, human crews waited silently. The heavy rail cannons were locked on the expected flight. Puffs of the Imperial ships, every piece of equipment had been tested many times. Every crew member knew their role. Suddenly, the silence was shattered. The first shot was fired. A massive projectile launched from the depths of an asteroid, hurtled toward the lead Imperial cruiser. The enemy officers barely had time to react before the projectile hit. The cruiser's shields flickered and then failed. Explosions tore through the ship's hull, and it began to break apart. The Imperial fleet commander immediately ordered the fleet to change course and return fire. Laser beams and plasma bursts filled space, lighting up the dark belt like a violent storm. The human gun stations continued firing, striking targets hidden behind rocks and asteroids. At the same time, the hidden minefields began to awaken. Thousands of small, invisible devices activated and waited for the enemy ships to enter their deadly range. One by one, Imperial vessels found themselves caught in explosions so sudden and powerful. They had no chance to respond. The Empire's officers were stunned. They had expected some resistance, but nothing like this. The strength and precision of the human defenses were beyond anything they had prepared for. Meanwhile, deep in the shadows of space, the human stealth fleet began its deadly work. Ships that seemed to vanish from all sensors appeared suddenly. Among the Imperial rear guard, swift attack craft struck at engines and weapon systems, then disappeared before enemy reinforcements could arrive. The battle quickly became chaos for the Imperial fleet. Ships that once moved confidently now scattered in confusion. Communications between vessels were filled with alarms and urgent requests for help. Commander Hale remained calm. He knew that the trap was working exactly as planned. Every weapon fired, every explosion was weakening the enemy's advance. On the command bridge of the Resolute, Hale watched the battlefield unfold on the main display. The markers for the Imperial ships grew smaller and fewer as they were destroyed or forced to retreat. But Hale also knew the battle was far from over. The Empire was powerful, and their forces would not give up easily. The next phase of the plan was ready. Human fleets from nearby systems began to arrive. These ships were heavier and faster than those used in the initial trap. They came prepared to push the enemy back and take the fight beyond the border. As the new fleets joined the fight, the Imperial officers realized that they were facing an enemy much larger than they had believed. The humans had hidden their true strength well. The battle spread across many star systems. Human and Imperial ships clashed in furious fights above planets, round moons, and within dense asteroid fields. In one sector, a human frigate named Valor raced through enemy fire to rescue a damaged transport. Its captain, Jarn, showed skill and courage, outmaneuvering several larger Imperial cruisers and saving hundreds of lives. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread quickly. Some human worlds held celebrations for the first victories. Others prepared for harder fighting to come. The people knew that their future depended on the courage and skill of their defenders. Back in the Empire, the Emperor's advisors met. In urgency, reports from the front lines told of heavy losses. Entire squadrons had been destroyed. The arrogance that once filled the Imperial halls was replaced by worry. One advisor warned, "We underestimated the humans. They have weapons and tactics we did not expect." The Emperor's voice was cold and sharp. "Then we will bring more force. We will not lose to a small collection of worlds. Prepare the second wave." But even as the Empire planned to bring greater strength, humanity's defenders continued their work. They repaired damaged ships quickly, redistributed forces where needed, and kept the Empire off balance. Commander Hale stood once more on the observation deck of the Resolute. He looked out at the stars and thought about the long fight ahead. The Empire had made the first move, but humanity was ready to meet it. "This is only the beginning," Hale said quietly. "They will learn that we are not weak. We are not afraid." The trap had been sprung, and the Empire was already paying the price. But the greatest test was still to come. The battle had tested humanity's defenses. The Galactic Empire had come with strength and pride, but it had met unexpected resistance. Imperial ships were destroyed, their commanders confused and frustrated. Still, the Empire would not stop. They believed that power was the answer. They believed that more ships, more weapons, more force would break humanity's will. Commander Hale and his officers understood something different. They knew that true strength was not just in numbers. It was in the secrets hidden deep inside human technology and the determination of the people who used it. For years, human scientists and engineers had worked in secret, far from prying eyes. They had created weapons and systems that the Empire had never imagined. Most of these were not shown during the early battles. They were saved for the time when humanity needed them most. One such secret was the energy weapon called the Starbreaker. It was not a weapon of mass destruction meant to wipe out entire planets. Instead, it was precise and deadly. It could focus a beam of energy so powerful that it could cut through the thickest armor of Imperial capital ships in seconds. Its power was held hidden until the last moment. Another secret was the stealth technology that allowed ships to vanish from even the most advanced sensors. Human ships moved through space like ghosts. They could appear behind enemy lines without warning and strike critical targets before disappearing again. Hale also commanded small teams of special operators trained for unique missions. These operators could board enemy ships silently and disable their systems. They were experts in sabotage and quick strikes. But perhaps the greatest hidden power was humanity's ability to unite. The colonies, once spread far across many star systems, now stood together like never before. Communication between worlds was instant. Information was shared freely. Every fleet and every world knew the importance of this fight. While the Empire thought they faced small, scattered groups, they were actually up against a united front. This unity gave humans the strength to fight back against overwhelming odds. As the Empire gathered forces for their next attack, human leaders prepared to reveal their true power on Earth. In the deep command center beneath the surface, Hale met with his closest advisors. They studied the latest intelligence reports. The Empire's second wave was larger, faster, and better armed than before. They believe their numbers will win the day, Hale said, but they have not seen what we can do. The room was silent for a moment. Then an engineer named Mira spoke up. "Our Starbreaker cannons are ready," she said. "They have been tested on remote targets. Now, we will use them where they matter most." Hale nodded. "Good. We will need every advantage." In space, the Starbreaker ships moved quietly into position. These vessels had been kept out of sight during the first battle. Now, they waited for the signal. Meanwhile, stealth fleets prepared for their missions. They would strike at Imperial supply lines, destroy communication arrays, and disable key weapons systems. Hale knew that the coming fight would not only be about strength, it would be about surprise, skill, and courage. The Second Imperial Fleet approached human space with confidence. They carried dozens of new warships, including massive battleships capable of firing devastating weapons over long distances. Imperial commanders believed that their new ships would quickly crush human defenses, but the humans were ready. When the Imperial fleet crossed the border, the Starbreaker cannons fired. Bright beams of energy cut through the darkness of space, one after another. Imperial warships were hit. Their shields failed under the focused blasts. Some ships exploded, while others were forced to retreat. The sudden power of these weapons shocked the Empire. Many commanders had never seen technology like this before. They ordered their fleets to fall back and regroup. At the same time, stealth teams moved through space like shadows. Their ships disappeared from sensors. They struck silently at Imperial supply lines. Without fuel and supplies, the Empire's warships could not continue fighting. Human special operators boarded enemy ships under cover of darkness. They sabotaged engines, destroyed weapons, and freed prisoners taken by the Empire. The battle was no longer only about firepower. It had become a fight of intelligence, planning, and will. On the Resolute, Hale watched the progress of the attack. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "We have shown the Empire that we are more than they expected," he said. "But this fight is far from over. The Empire would not give up easily. Their leaders would gather even larger fleets. They would bring more powerful weapons. But humanity had shown that their hidden power could turn the tide. Every world in human space felt the change. The people saw that their defenders were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to protect their homes, their families, and their freedom. The galaxy was beginning to take notice. The Empire had made a mistake. They had thought humans were weak and small. Now they saw that humans had power hidden deep beneath their calm surface. And they had the courage to use it. The battles had been fierce. The Galactic Empire had sent wave after wave of warships, believing their sheer force would crush humanity's defenses. Yet every attack had been met with cunning, traps, hidden weapons, and brave crews willing to risk everything to protect their homes. The Empire had not expected such resistance. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, watching the ongoing battle through the large viewing windows. Stars flashed by as fleets moved in deadly dance. The sounds of alarms and commands filled the air. Despite the chaos, Hale's mind was clear and focused. "Today, we end this," Hale said to his officers. "We deliver the final blow that will show the Empire that humanity will not be broken." The plan was bold. Humanity's fleets would strike at the heart of the Imperial forces. They would use every weapon, every skill, and every secret they had held back until now. This was their moment. The Empire's main fleet had gathered near a cluster of dense asteroids, believing it was a safe place to regroup after the previous battles. It was a mistake. The humans had watched their movements closely and knew this was where the final strike would happen, from their hidden positions. Human warships launched a surprise attack. Starbreaker cannons flared to life, cutting through the dark void. The energy beams hit Imperial capital ships, crippling their shields and tearing through their armor. Explosions rocked the fleet. Imperial commanders scrambled to respond. They sent fighters and cruisers to intercept the attacking ships. The battle turned fierce, with fighters weaving between giant warships and plasma fire lighting the darkness. In the midst of the fight, human stealth ships struck from unexpected directions. They targeted command vessels, weapons platforms, and supply ships with deadly precision. They disabled key systems, causing confusion and chaos among the Empire's ranks. Commander Hale coordinated every move. He sent reinforcements where they were needed most and ordered retreats when necessary. His leadership kept the human fleet focused and strong. The battle lasted hours, but the tide had turned. The Empire's forces were broken and scattered. Many ships were destroyed. Others fled toward their own space, battered and defeated. On the Resolute, Hale allowed himself a moment to breathe. He looked out at the stars and thought of the cost of this victory. So many brave men and women had fought and died, yet their sacrifice had made the difference. "We have shown the Empire what it means to face humanity," Hale said quietly, across human space. News of the final battle spread quickly. People celebrated the victory, but knew the war was not over. The Empire was powerful and could return with even greater force still. The courage and strength shown in this battle gave hope to many. The fight had proven that humanity could stand against the greatest threat in the galaxy. In the Imperial capital, the Emperor received reports of the defeat. His face was cold and hard. He would not forget this loss. Prepare for a new campaign. He ordered, "We will crush these humans and bring order to their worlds." But deep inside the Empire, some began to question. Could a small people really hold against such might? What had they missed about humanity's strength? For now, the answer was clear. Humanity had struck the final blow in this battle. They had forced the Empire to see them not as weak subjects, but as powerful defenders. Commander Hale knew the fight would continue, but he also knew that humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer hidden. They were no longer weak. They were ready to defend their freedom, whatever the cost. The battle at the Vega Rift had ended. Wreckage drifted in the silent darkness of space. A reminder of the fierce struggle that had taken place. Humanity had faced the full force of the Galactic Empire in that sector and emerged victorious. Across the colonies, people were filled with relief and pride. On the flagship Resolute, Commander Hale stood at the large viewing window. The stars stretched endlessly before him. Calm and beautiful, it was hard to believe that only hours ago, those same stars had been filled with fire and chaos. Fleet officers moved quietly across the bridge. Some were coordinating rescue missions. Others were managing repairs for damaged ships. The air carried a mix of exhaustion and determination. Status report, Hale asked. Lieutenant Brand stepped forward. All enemy ships in the sector have been destroyed or captured. Rescue operations are ongoing. Civilian sectors remain safe. Our fleets are returning to defensive positions. Hale gave a small nod. The words were good, but he knew the fight was far from over. The Empire still controlled vast regions of the galaxy, and they would not forget this defeat. Still, this victory had changed something important. Humanity was no longer seen as a weak, scattered people. They had stood together and proven that even the greatest empire could be challenged. Messages poured in from across human space. Colony leaders pledged their loyalty to the united human. Defense civilians offered their skills, resources, and time to strengthen the cause. Formerly distant worlds now felt united under one purpose: survival and freedom. The galaxy was beginning to notice as well. Reports spread quickly among neutral civilizations. Some expressed surprise, others quiet admiration. A few even sent secret messages to Hale's command, offering friendship or trade in the future. The idea of a united and strong humanity was something many had not considered before. But while celebration grew, Hale focused on the work ahead. The fleets had taken damage. Supplies needed to be rebuilt. Defenses had to be reinforced. He called a meeting with his senior officers to plan the next steps. Round the strategy table, a large holographic map of human space glowed in blue. Red markers showed known Imperial positions. Yellow markers represented neutral territories. Hale pointed toward the border regions. "These are our weak points," he said. "If the Empire strikes again, this is where they will come. We must strengthen these sectors before they have a chance to recover." Admiral Corvin spoke next. "We also have an opportunity. The Empire's defeat here will cause unrest in their territories. If we act quickly, We can disrupt their supply lines and slow any new attack. Mira, the chief engineer, leaned forward. Our Starbreaker cannons performed beyond expectations. With more time, we can improve them even further. I recommend expanding production. Hale agreed. Begin at once. And prepare our stealth fleets for long-range patrols. I want the Empire to know we can strike anywhere, anytime. The officers left the meeting with renewed purpose. The victory had given them strength, but it had also given them responsibility. Humanity could not relax now. In the days that followed, work began at a relentless pace. Shipyards operated without pause, repairing damaged vessels and building new ones. Engineers worked on faster engines and stronger shields. Colonies contributed raw materials, food supplies, and skilled workers. The United Human Defense Fleet grew stronger with each passing day. Fleets practiced coordinated maneuvers across multiple star systems. Stealth ships tested new routes for deep space travel. The asteroid defense stations were resupplied and upgraded. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital, unrest was brewing. Many commanders questioned why the war was even necessary. Some feared that continued fighting would weaken the Empire in other regions. Whispers of doubt spread quietly through the ranks. The Emperor, however, remained determined to bring humanity under control. He ordered more ships to be built, even as his advisors warned him of the risks far from the imperial palace. Hale's thoughts were focused on the future. He knew the Empire would strike again. But he also knew that humanity now had something it had never truly possessed before. Unity. On a quiet evening aboard the Resolute, Hale walked through the ship's observation deck. A group of young crew members stood together, talking quietly. They noticed him and stood straighter, saluting. At ease, Hale said with a faint smile, "You've all earned some rest." One of the crew members, a young navigator, spoke. "Up, sir. Do you think we can really win if they come again?" Hale looked out at the stars for a long moment before answering. "We already have won in one way. They thought we would bow to them. They thought we would give up. We proved them wrong. That spirit is what will carry us through whatever comes next." The young navigator nodded, reassured. The crew returned to their quiet conversation, their faces a little brighter as the days passed. Signs of recovery spread across human space. Damaged colonies were repaired with help from neighboring worlds. Trade routes reopened under fleet protection. Families reunited after being separated by the war. It was not peace, not yet, but it was hope. The victory at Vega Rift became a symbol. Songs were written, stories told. Children in distant colonies played games pretending to be fleet captains, holding the line against the Empire. Humanity had found something worth believing in again. One morning, Hale received a message from a distant mining colony. The words were simple. "Because of you, we are free." He read the message twice, then quietly stored it in his private log. It reminded him why they fought. Looking ahead, Hale knew the road would be long. The Empire would not forget, but the humans were no longer the same people they had been when this began. They were united, confident, and ready. Standing once more before the stars, Hale spoke softly, almost to himself. "This is our new dawn. We will protect it, we will defend it, and we will endure." Beyond the glass, the galaxy stretched out. Vast, dangerous, and full of possibility, humanity had survived its greatest test so far. Whatever came next, they would face it together.